of Worcester. Due to the weather, we are completely remote tonight. We were planned to be hybrid with many of us in Esther Howland chamber, but that was not possible due to the storm. Thank you everyone for joining. We have a quorum of members present. We have a guest tonight, and Joshua Boucher, I think he's one of the staff people as a guest. We're waiting for Paul Matthews unless possibly they're on together. And I will take a brief roll call and then hand it over to the chair, Guillermo Creamer. So members present, Chair Guillermo Creamer Jr.
Here.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman. Clerk Carrie Witherell.
Here.
Member Bernard Reese.
Here.
Member Anahit Marudian.
Here.
Member Drew Schneblin. Member Reverend Jonathan Slavinskis.
Here.
Member Jacqueline Yang. Okay, so we do have a quorum present. I will hand the agenda over to the chair to run through the meeting. Thanks again, everyone. And a reminder, we are recording this meeting as required for the open meeting law. So if you do not want to be recorded, you should leave the meeting. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Pat, for kicking us off. Let's start, as we always do, with our meetings. Carrie, I'm going to have you kick us off with some key terms, and then afterwards I will do the land acknowledgement.
All right. Human Rights Commission mission. The Human Rights Commission was established to promote the city's human rights policy. It is the policy of the city to assure that every individual shall have equal access to and benefit from all public services, to protect every individual in the enjoyment and exercise of civil rights, and to encourage and bring about mutual understanding and respect among all individuals of the city. It is the goal of the HRC to ensure that all city residents are treated fairly and equally by eliminating bigotry, discrimination, intolerance, and prejudice. Our work requires us to address institutional racism so that as a community we can achieve racial equity. Our work also requires us to make visible the unheard, unearned, and unquestioned privilege enjoyed by some members of our community to the detriment of others. We take time to make this acknowledgement to educate so that a path can be cleared for healing. Key terms: institutional racism. The term institutional racism refers specifically to the ways in which institutional policies create different outcomes for different racial groups. The institutional policies may never mention any racial groups, but their effect is to create advantages for whites and oppression and disadvantage for people from groups classified as people of color. Racial equity. The term racial equity is the active state in which race does not determine one's livelihood or success. It is achieved through proactive work to address root causes of inequalities to improve outcomes for all individuals. That is, through the elimination or shifting of policies, practices, attitudes, and cultural messages that reinforce different outcomes by race or fail to eliminate them. And privilege. The term privilege describes the unearned social power in informal institutions of society to all members of a dominant group. For example, white privilege and male privilege. Privilege is usually invisible to those who have it because we are trained not to see it, but nevertheless, it puts them at an advantage against those who do not have it.
Thank you so much. And then I will do a land acknowledgement. So we'll continue our practice of acknowledging the traditional ancestral territory of the First Peoples of Massachusetts, on which land we are convening tonight. The Nipmuc Nation is what is now Worcester County. While the Nipmuc history predates written history, records from the 1600s inform us that the original inhabitants of Worcester dwelt principally in 3 locations: Packagug, Tatsit, and Wigwam Hill. It is important to make this acknowledgement and to honor the ancestors that have come before us. Unfortunately, it is all too easy to live in this land without ever hearing the traditional names and history of the people who first resided and prospered on these lands and continue to reside and prosper. So again, thank you all so much for coming on with all the snow on the ground, and glad everyone still has power and is staying safe and hopefully staying warm. I do want to acknowledge public comment would take place now if anyone wanted to. Pat, I don't know if you just want to quickly do that.
Yes, hi, anyone. If there's any member of the public that wishes to make any comments, we currently have a policy where the chair invites the public comment. We have a time limit. Unfortunately, we haven't had to use that lately, so but it is available for someone to raise their hand with their little emoji at the top of the team screen, and we will acknowledge you one at a time, typically in the order you raise your hand. So I don't see anyone raising their hand at all. So I will put it back over to you, Guillermo.
Great, thank you. And I see our guest has joined us, so I'm excited to have him speak in a little bit. Good to see you, Paul. So let's quickly do some quick business here. Can we get a motion to approve last month's minutes?
Motion to approve minutes?
Great, can we get a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Pat, a roll call, please.
So we have a motion made by Reverend Jonathan to approve the minutes from last month's meeting. I'm going to take a brief roll call. It's seconded by Dr. Reese. So roll call to approve the minutes. Chair Guillermo Creamer Jr.
Aye.
Clerk Carrie Witherell.
Aye.
Member Reverend Jonathan Slavinskis.
Aye.
Member Dr. Reese.
Aye.
And member Anahit Marudian.
Aye.
The motion carries and the minutes are approved.
Great, thank you. Some quick housekeeping stuff. As a reminder, I think, Pat, you were gonna recirculate the dates for folks. I remember the first like email of different dates that folks' terms expired might have been off, and so you were gonna double check with that.
I'm
you
waiting to
suspect-
hear. Yeah, I'm waiting to hear back. I actually just followed up again with HR because what happened was they gave me the information, and then when I sent it out to all of you, one at a time, I was hearing from several of you that it seemed incorrect. So
Yeah.
they're supposed to be double checking and getting back to me. I haven't gotten that back yet.
Okay, all right, yeah, that'd be good to know, and that because it's 3-year terms, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. So yeah, because it'd be good to know just kind of when everyone started and when everyone's terms are over, so that way we get some clear understanding as to what leadership could look like and stuff. Sorry, I'm like on the cusp of sneezing, but it
And
doesn't want to
and
come
the other
out.
thing was the district allotment, like who was
Yes.
what, and yeah, yep.
Yeah, especially because the districts have
Exactly.
changed in the last couple of years.
Okay. It's still,
Awesome.
it's a work in progress.
For sure. Okay, great. And then it is still Black History Month, folks. So I hope that folks are educating themselves. I know that I have learned some things, actually. I take it upon myself to learn new things, and it's been kind of cool discovering new things about Black History Month. So I hope that folks are still doing that on their own time and in their own capacity. I have on here that we're supposed to discuss our meeting with the chief, but we did that last month.
Actually left that on there as a standing thing, Guillermo, just in case I
Oh,
wasn't,
okay.
I'm not always privy to when you meet with him, so.
No worries.
Yeah, so I left it on there as a standing housekeeping thing.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, Randy and I don't have an update. But I did actually do a carry to license course at the Worcester Police Department 2 weeks ago, actually, and it was a full house, and it was really interesting. And I learned stuff, and I technically can go up for my license to carry now. And I did that because I wanted to kind of educate myself, not because I have any intention to. But just a reminder that we have the ability to reach out to the Worcester Police Department for a variety of things. I know they have probably a civilian class coming up soon. I don't know if either one of you, Kevin or Pat, know. If you do know, it'd be great to circulate that information with the commission, because I think the commission would benefit greatly from different programs like that. And as always, folks can do ride-alongs and stuff, so just don't hesitate to ask Pat. Randy, is that you?
I'm just playing around. Did I do something?
I thought I heard something. Okay.
I was trying to turn my microphone off so I don't create background noise. Maybe that was what had happened.
Okay, no worries. All right, awesome. And then we're supposed to discuss the conversation that Randy had, but I'm gonna push that just simply because we are about to have Paul Matthews on here. But Randy, if you want to quickly talk about the conversation that you had with Paul Matthews prior to this, that would be great.
I probably should just do it as by way of introduction.
Yeah.
Paul gave us a rundown, kind of in depth, on all the stuff that the Worcester Research Bureau, Regional Research Bureau does, all the different studies that they've conducted, all the interesting topics that they've done and those that they've updated. And when we were thinking about a topic for today, there were so many rich things that they've studied that have a lot to do with human rights in the city. It was a little hard to come up with which one of the many things we wanted Paul to speak about tonight. So we did settle on one. We actually mixed up two, and Paul let us know that it's got to be one or the other probably. So we then corrected that and asked him to speak on what he's going to speak about. Another thing that Paul mentioned, and Patricia, I was going to ask you about this. He mentioned that we have two local representatives, Deborah Hall from the YWCA and Reverend Talley from a local church, both spaces of people of color, led by people of color, and that they're both on the Post Commission. So we were so inspired by that. I didn't know, Patricia, did you get a chance to reach out to them for tonight's meeting?
I didn't, Randy. I don't really have any of their contact information. I know Kevin was working on that for me. But no, I did not get a chance to reach out to them because I really don't know either of them.
All right. Well, I think, we're so lucky, this idea of a civilian review board versus relying on the Post Commission is so ripe. And Paul was nice enough to inform us that we have two local members who are on Post Commission. So I think for next month's meeting, if time permitting, I don't know when the chief and the police are coming. I think it's the following month, but I don't know. Maybe we could reach out to them because it certainly is a timely topic.
I will do my best to reach out to them. My concern is I don't know if as members of the Post Commission, they're able to make public appearances but I don't know. I'm only presuming that in my legal mind.
Yeah, you're right, though. We can certainly find out, that's for sure. Yeah. Other than that, I just wanted to say that the Worcester Research Bureau has gone through, since I've been alive and living in Worcester, 3 different executive directors, each one with a somewhat different orientation, I would say. Board of directors who seem to also have different orientations. And Paul was kind enough to take us through all the different studies made under many different executive CEO, executive director folks. And then let us know, where to go find the research according to what we're looking for. He gave us a nice rundown with all the different things that are there. Anyone could also go online and look up Worcester Research Bureau, and I'm sure everyone will find it absolutely fascinating at the different topics that they've addressed. Some more municipal oriented, some more social justice oriented, and some a mix of the two. So that's all I want to say about the meeting, and then welcome Paul, if anyone else would like to do it more formally, but if not, there we go.
No, that works, Randy. Before we get to Paul really quickly, or Paul and his team, I just want to acknowledge Drew is also on the call. Pat, in case you didn't see, and obviously Randy who just spoke. So just if we could put that in our notes, that would be great. So Paul, we're ready for you if you or a member of your team are ready for us. But essentially, we'd love to give you the floor. And again, thanks for all the work that you do in the city and promoting really great stuff. And so thank you for your efforts.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. And through the chair, thank you to the entire commission for this opportunity. Just for the record, I should say my name is Paul Matthews. I am a lifelong city resident, continue to do so. I'm the executive director and CEO of the Worcester Regional Research Bureau. And I'm joined by my colleague, Josh Boucher, who's going to be walking you through some research that we discussed with the commission leadership and staff and Pat and Kevin, and identified as issues of concern to all of you. So let me say first off, thank you for the very kind remarks and praise by Randy and Gormo. And I want to make sure everyone knows this is such an important meeting. You're looking at 2/3 of the staff. We only have one other colleague, Eric Nealand, who's the Director of Programs and Operations, and we customarily have another research position. We do have a colleague who departed for a role in Boston, so we hope to be back up to 4 soon. But this meeting's so important. You have 2/3 of the staff here in the middle of the blizzard, so we do very much appreciate the opportunity to speak. And Josh is also a city resident, by the way. First off, I think primarily for members of the public, less so the commission. I should just make clear that the Research Bureau is not a city agency. We are not a municipal agency. We're not a public agency. We're a private nonprofit. We're 41 years old. We're a 501c3. So we're a public charity that was formed with a research and education mission 41 years ago. To be specific, not by Josh and myself, by a lot of other very committed community leaders. And Randy was quite kind to mention I'm the third executive director. I will never reach the tenure of the first executive director, Roberta Schaefer, who was there for 28 years. And in between us was Tim McGurthy, who's now the city CFO, but left to be an undersecretary of economic development when he was with the Bureau. So I've been very fortunate to have two great predecessors and be served by two great colleagues right now, soon to be a third. And the work the Bureau does, we were specifically organized around research and education, but it's important to stress independent, nonpartisan, data-based research and analysis of public policy issues with really two missions: to inform the public and policymakers to try to help inform decision-making in Greater Worcester. So the Bureau originally in 1985 was founded to focus on the city of Worcester. About 25 years ago, it shifted to be regional in nature. So while we do a lot of work in Worcester, to the point that got discussed earlier, we do regional scale work as well throughout Worcester County, but that also typically includes an emphasis on Worcester. So I do want to single out one partner we have, the Greater Worcester Community Foundation. We're going to talk about 3 reports tonight that were identified as being of key interest to the commission. But there's a whole range of reports we do. And the specific collaboration with the Greater Worcester Community Foundation is around Worcester County Insights, which is a data dashboard that looks countywide at a wide range of data sets. And the good news for those in the city is Worcester is so large, there's a discrete category for Worcester. So you can compare Worcester in those data categories to the county, to the state, and to the country. So it really helps put in relief and context a lot of the community and social circumstances we're facing here in the city of Worcester. So the Bureau, throughout our 41 years, uses objective data to research a wide range of policy issues and try to inform the public and policymakers. So when we started 41 years ago, some of us remember there was no internet. So we did not have what we currently do today. Today, we use a lot of credible, objective data from public sources, like the American Community Survey, like the Bureau of Labor Statistics, like the U.S. Census. We also have been very fortunate. We've done a series of reports and research using publicly sourced data that was provided to us by public agencies. So we don't subscribe to very expensive data sets. We simply don't have the budget. We are very fortunate that public agencies and public officials understand and respect the outside, credible, objective work we do. So for instance, the city manager and Steve Rowley provided us with a series of parking data sets that we could use in 2 parking reports we did. Likewise, the previous school superintendent provided us with data on students returning to school. So we've been very fortunate to have that level of access. And we did a commuter rail report using state data that was commissioned to assemble station boarding data that was done by MassInc. So data sets come to us different ways. We do a wide range of reports. We conduct briefings for interested stakeholders, not just public like this, but we do forums and events. And we try to make sure the research is available online. So if you're watching at home, go to wrrb.org. All of the research is there. We do, whenever possible, try to incorporate data visualizations so people can read our analysis, but also access the data directly to use themselves. And we're very fortunate here tonight, and Josh, if you don't mind advancing the slide, to be looking at 3 reports in particular. So we've done a wide range of work on issues like, by the way, previously, I've addressed the Human Rights Commission in previous years on work like our broadband access work, our work in the WRTA, our work on voting turnout. And For instance, we just released a short while ago a new data visualization looking at the election results for the municipal election, so people can look at ward and precinct results and see how candidates did. So urge everyone to go online, but that's not why we're here tonight. I want to thank the commission leadership for helping narrow our focus. So we're here on 3 different reports that are all interrelated. The first is in 2022, we did a report entitled Static Income, Rising Costs. That looked at residential rents in the city of Worcester and income levels in the city of Worcester from 2010 to 2020. And we looked at peer cities, and we also provided a historical explanation by providing, for the first time in decades, the city's redlining map. We got it from the National Archives, released it publicly, and that helped inform an analysis we did neighborhood by neighborhood in the city. It's important to note, Josh is going to walk you through some of these things, but for instance, that data set ran from 2010 to 2020. Since we're in 2026, we're going to give a high level overview, but I think it's important to note the data is aged. So I think we all know the residential rents probably have not gone down in the city, but they're certainly not current. In 2023, we did environmental injustice, which looked at climate impacts on neighborhoods. And again, this is a great example of a data set. John Odell provided us with the results of the city's 2020 heat risk assessment, which was done by a consultant. And we were able to compare that with public health data, tree coverage, energy costs, and again, look neighborhood by neighborhood, including red line districts, to see the impact. And lastly, in 2024, we looked at pedestrian, and we call it vulnerable road users. So those on scooters or other, alternative means, not vehicles, looking at risk factors for vulnerable road users, particularly pedestrians in the city. I think we all recognize the city has really struggled and had a terrible outcome in pedestrian safety. So we were able to run a complete analysis, including redlining areas, to see how those neighborhoods fared. So the consistent thread here is it's a neighborhood by neighborhood analysis of different issues that I think relate to the Human Rights Commission perspective and need to understand what's happening in neighborhoods in the city of Worcester. So on that note, I am happy to pivot and let my colleague Josh Boucher, our Senior Research Associate, walk you through a high-level overview of each of these 3 reports.
Can I just say something really quickly, Paul, before you move
Sure.
on? All your reports, they end up leading to something, right? And I think that can't not be acknowledged. It's very important to recognize that. The 23 report, for example, about the heat risk assessment. When I was helping with the citywide planning project and the Miyawaki Forest and Cool Pockets project, we looked at that research, right? That was the type of stuff that we needed to really move us forward. And so that's just one example of how the reports that you all do really do lead to substantial change. So I just wanted to acknowledge that before we moved on.
Well, thank you very much, Guillermo. Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it.
All right,
On that
thank
note-
you. Oh, sorry, Paul.
Nope, that's okay. Just take it away, Josh. You're the one who's going to do all the heavy lifting here.
So yeah, thank you so much to the Human Rights Commission, the chairman, and everyone else who's made this possible for us to be here tonight to talk about our work. I've been with the Bureau since 2022, so I've been on or involved with all these projects here. And so I'm just going to take us through a little bit about each one. You can find the links to these reports on our website, wrrb.org. And you can also find I believe they all have, static income and environmental injustice have associated dashboards. Towards Safer Streets does not, but you can interact with the data a little bit online as well. Okay, so static income. This report just showed over 10 years the increases in housing cost burden in Worcester. So this was using mostly census data from between 2010 and 2020, and accounting for inflation. Renter households saw their monthly costs grow by 8.85%, and owner households saw their costs decrease by a little over 17%. While median income grew by 1.45% for renters and 1.73% for owners. I should also note that the number of owner households actually did decrease a little bit during this period, while renters, there are a lot more renters over the same period. So that may be part of the math here. But we were able to spend most of the report talking about this, and we used an estimation method, geographic apportionment, to look at how these maps of renter demographics, what they would look like if we still use the redlining maps as boundaries. So I'm going to take us through the renter maps first, and then we'll spend some time talking about redlining for a couple of slides. And I should also mention that static income rising cost was, as far as we can tell, the first release of Worcester's redlining maps digitally that we could find. There were a few other releases after we released these maps, but I'll talk about how we found them in the process that Paul went through a little bit. But this first map is the percentage of cost burden renter units in 2022. So it's a little bit more updated than what's in the actual report. But on the left, these are all the census tracts in the city, and these are the number of renter households in those tracts that are cost burdened. So they spend 30% or more of their annual income on rent. And we used geographic apportionment to create the map on the right. And that is taking the red line zones that you can see on the far right and basically estimating what those zones would look like using the census data to find out how many renters are potentially in those areas that are cost burdened. And so I should point out that again, I'll talk about this in another slide. But the red and yellow areas were rated the worst in the 1930s, and the green is the best, and then blue was the second best. And so we can kind of see here that in general, the red and yellow areas are the areas that have the largest percentage of cost burden renters, based on the estimation here from the census data. Similarly, we did this for demographics. So we can see the percentage of population below the poverty level, and the red and yellow areas tend to have a large percentage of below the poverty line. Percentage of non-white population, red and yellow areas concentrated. Median income, the highest median income is in the blue and green areas on the west side of the city. And then the percentage of renter occupied units, again, the red and yellow areas have the highest percentage of renter occupied units in 2020. So just go back to talking about redlining. In the 1930s, the Federal Homeowners Loan Corporation rated neighborhoods in the city using race, ethnicity, and income data. So basically, these appraisers came in and they talked to local leaders, whether politicians, bankers, realtors, and others, to make their determinations of how to rank these areas. And so neighborhoods were rated as one of 4 categories: best, still desirable, definitely declining, and hazardous. And what we would call the central business district today, or the downtown area, that's just rated as business. So they don't actually rate that as into one of these categories. Just as an FYI for that point. But these zones were used to approve or deny credit lending and mortgage backing by banks throughout the mid 20th century. So maybe 2 to 3 decades or less, but the impacts are still felt today. So there's no investment for a few decades, and that carries forward since these investments are long-term investments. Mapping Inequality is a national academic examination of redlining maps from the University of Richmond. And so it was actually thanks to the Mapping Inequality that we were able to find these maps. Paul tracked down the number at the National Archives of where these maps might have been located and contacted Mapping Inequality, and they were regularly in the archives, and they were able to get the map for us, and we were able to recreate it digitally. And so here's just an example of their own dashboard, where you can find redlining maps for, of course, now Worcester, but also Springfield, Fitchburg, Lowell, Lawrence, Fall River, New Bedford, all gateway cities, and most of the greater Boston area as well. We created an interactive dashboard to inform the public on the rent and income data, as well as resources on redlining. And we also, at the time, convened a forum with the Worcester Historical Museum featuring a national academic expert and the Worcester Black History Project. And that was in February 2023. So I'm actually almost 3 years ago now. You can find the story map we made, as well as the redlining dashboard online. And you can interact with the map, which again, here is the redlining map, where we can see the business district. So that is like the downtown area today. And then the numbers rank how they ranked them from 1 to 15, because there are 15 zones. And so you can see 1 is the quote unquote best area over here, Salisbury Street, WPI. And then 15 is down in what would be now Main South. The areas that are not ranked, it is very likely, I don't know for sure, but it is very likely that there were few homes in these areas, so they couldn't really make a determination at the time. And some of these, like Green Hill Park, there's not many homes on Green Hill Park, so they're not going to rate it. And so that's why that area is blank. And on this slide, I'm not going to read them, but we do have the descriptions of the zones, and they used race and ethnicity categories as well as income in order to make their determinations after talking with local leaders. And so you can see all these descriptions on our interactive dashboard as well. There's descriptions for all 15 that go into a little bit more detail than what we have here. The next thing that I want to talk about is environmental injustice. So in November 2023, the Bureau released Environmental Injustice and Evaluation of Climate Impacts in Worcester Neighborhoods. And so here we used environmental justice designated areas by the state and redline neighborhoods to look at how they fare in terms of temperature during the summer, tree cover, and health outcomes using CDC data. And so the environmental justice areas are determined by the state based on one of 3 criteria. Such as language spoken at home is not English, median income below a certain level, and then I believe education is another measure that they use. And so you can have from 1 to 3. You can have either 1, 2, or all 3 of those. And they basically look at census block groups. And so census block groups are just like the census tracts we saw earlier, but smaller versions. It's 171 in the city, and as of I believe 2022, there's 141 that the state has designated in Worcester as environmental justice areas. And so we looked at that, and in combination with temperature and tree cover and such, as we see here, and many of the hottest areas in Worcester in summer 2020, when the data was collected by the city in conjunction with the Georgia Institute of Technology Climate Lab, were also the red and yellow areas that we saw earlier, demonstrating that there was a potential lack of investment during 20th century in these areas, but also that they are the more urban areas that have little tree cover compared to some of the other areas that there's a lot more trees on the west side, for example, than there are in downtown. We got to work on our street trees there. Okay. So using a temperature and tree cover maps, the Bureau could then estimate what the redlined areas would look like today. This is the map on the left here is the average maximum temperature for the summer of 2020. The red to black areas are the hottest areas. Oops, skipped a slide, sorry. The red to black areas are the hottest areas. So this is for the entire summer. They measured the minimum, average, and maximum temperature recorded every day. And so this is the average of all the maximum temperatures for every day during the summer. And from there, you can kind of estimate what the tree coverage looks like. And so the tree coverage map is basically an inverse of the temperature map. Areas with trees are generally cooler than areas without trees. And we took both of those maps and again used the geographic apportionment to see what that would look like in the redlining areas. So it is pretty mixed. There is this area up here where that was blue and has pretty high temperatures from during the summer. The red areas again are the hottest, and over here as well. And then down here, this area, there is the Audubon forests and other forested areas down here, and then we also have the trees along in the west side as well. So that led to lower temperatures, and we can see that reflected in the tree coverage map on the right. Since climate and temperature are so linked to health outcomes, we also mapped health data from CDC Places. And so this is just the census tract data of people who rate their health status as fair or poor, the percentage of them. And so just turning that into the red line maps, again, red and yellow areas tend to have the most people rating their health outcomes as fair or poor. And the final report talk about today that we use, in which we use redlining, the redlining maps, was Towards Safer Streets. So we released this in July 2024, and this was around the time that Vision Zero, the Vision Zero plan, either had been just released or was still in the process of being drafted and was going to be released soon. But basically, we looked at pedestrian safety from between 2012 and 2019, analyzing crashes involving vulnerable road users, so bikers, pedestrians, and other people not in their cars across Worcester. And so we focused on crashes near bus stops, in environmental justice zones, and in redlined areas. And so I'll just talk about the redlined areas really quick. So table 1 on this slide in our report shows the number of road segments in each redlining category. So there are 208 road segments in the business districts, 752 in hazardous, and so on. And the percentage of those segments that had crashes with vulnerable road users during the study period, and the percent of those segments that had severe crashes. So despite the fact that there are only 752 hazardous road segments, segments in the hazardous zone that are the blizzard got to me today. Despite the fact that there are only 752 road segments in the hazardous zone, so the smaller red areas we saw earlier, 6.38% of them had severe crashes during the study period, and that's about 48 segments. But in the best zone, in the green area, there are 342 road segments, so there are fewer than the hazardous areas, but only about five of those segments had pedestrian crashes. So that's a pretty big difference in the number of crashes, and we can see how they're ordered here in terms of the most severe in the business district to the least severe in the best district, the best district as well. And I mean, part of that is there are a large number of bus stops and other reasons for people to be out walking in the hazardous, definitely declining as still desirable areas compared to the best zone. So there are just more people on the road, but there's still a significant number of crashes happening in the hazardous zone as compared to the best zone. And with that, you can find this. That's the end of our presentation. You can find our information here to reach out to us on social media, and we're happy to answer your questions about these slides as well.
Well, thank you so much for doing that. I really appreciate it. I'm going to open it up to the commission. If anyone has any questions, I don't know if you want to unshare that. All right, great. So that way we can all look at each other better. But any questions from the commission? I know Randy is going to have a question.
I was trying not to go first.
Quick question really quick, Randy, before you go.
Yeah.
I was going to say, what was the year of the study again for those crash zones that you just talked about?
So it was 2012 to 2019, and the reason for 2012 to 2019 is because the state doesn't release. They basically like take a few years to finalize their crash data in terms of like the outcomes of what happened. Like, was there an injury? How severe was it? Did the person ultimately like pass away from that? And so we took a step back and just used that time period. Hopefully the number of crashes in those zones has gone down since like the city has undertaken all these changes with the Department of Transportation, Vision Zero, and whatnot. So yeah, I wish we could go a little bit further in time than 2019, but that was the reason why we chose 2019.
Well, especially because I'm thinking of like certain streets that have been redone too and stuff like that, obviously. So much has changed in Worcester in just the last 2 or 3 years. So I'm sure that report will definitely have an amendment at some point. I have Commissioner Anna Heat.
Hi, thank you so much for coming to speak with us today. I had a question regarding what limitations are there that we should keep in mind when we're interpreting these findings or data reports?
Yeah, so a big one for the apportionment, like changing the census tracts into the red line zones, is that those are just estimates. So I can get into the math a little bit, but like basically you look to see, like, you lay the two, they're called polygons, you lay them on top of each other and you see like what percentage of them overlap, and you assume that people are evenly distributed across a census tract. And so like if 40% if there's a 40% overlap, you take 40% of the total population of that census tract. So it's not totally exact. It is an estimate. We do talk about that in the reports, but it is kind of the best estimate that we can do with the available data, since a lot of these census results aren't released at anything more granular than the census tract level, just to protect people's privacy.
Thank you.
All right, I'll go. So redlining, I guess that was in the 1930s. And when we overlay the percentage of income that goes to rent and the climate and temperature with their disparate or poor health outcomes, it seems that they're in the same areas as the redlining, the racial and economic discriminatory lending practices. It seems like that's almost 100 years ago, and it's still the same areas. And I'm just a little surprised, if that's right, that the city hasn't somewhat changed, that there was not dynamism in things changing over 100 years. So they may be too broad of generalizations that I'm making, but Joshua, what do you think?
So I think we have to be really, really careful about making an assumption, right? That it was what happened in 1936 with this map is the reason why their outcomes today are the way they are. I think it's one piece of the pie, right? It's just one. There was a lack of investment in some of these areas early on, and so that just slowed some of the areas down from being all they could be in the future, right? Perhaps not the only thing, and it's impossible to say that it was the only factor why, say, the green and blue areas stayed green and blue. It'd be hard to make those. We don't want to make those generalizations.
Well, what other factors can you think of?
But if I could add, Randy, for a quick moment, I know that through the chair, I know that the interest in this dialogue was around redlining, and that's something that we're very honored the Bureau could contribute by finding the redlining map, digitizing it, and releasing it. And as a result, we've always looked at census tracts in the city and neighborhoods, at least during my tenure and when the data was available. So back in the day, I think in the 80s and 90s, the data wasn't available by neighborhood, it was available citywide. So that left us making assertions in aggregate about the city of Worcester. And as data became available on a census tract basis and by other neighborhoods, it allowed us to differentiate the varying degrees, no matter what we're talking about here, right? Educational attainment, home ownership, residential rents, broadband access. It allows us to show where the needs vary in the city of Worcester. With the redlining maps, it seemed important to, based on community feedback and based on the work that's being done, to keep, when possible, looking at the redlining areas to help inform the dialogue and discussion. I think, to Josh's point, we don't know correlation, causation. I think it's clear that back then, those were some of the more impoverished neighborhoods in the city. And so, essentially, if you start from that position, rather than the most prosperous neighborhoods, you do have an inequitable starting point. And I think that's inevitably part of this conversation. But I don't want to divert from Josh's answer, which might vary from my own.
No, I think that's a good point, Paul. And I think I would just if you're starting from -5, it's going to take you longer to get to 10 than if you're starting at 5, right? So I don't think I would add anything to it.
You know, for me, it's the length of time that's surprising. I understand, Paul, causation and correlation are two different things, so you can't make overly broad conclusions or generalizations. But it's still pretty amazing that all these years have gone by, and those areas are like. Here's another thing it could be: density, right? Especially when it comes to safer streets. You know, density, I'm sure, plays a big part in that. So that's not economic or racial discrimination. That's just density. So it's another factor that could affect, at least in that analysis of car accident stuff, or vulnerable walking or, you know, traveling people stuff that's not having to do with economics or race. But I just was still kind of surprised, you know, correlation or causation or not.
I might add too that you know, the high 290 and then eventually 190 do go through the red and yellow areas too, which I'm sure does not help outcomes or, you know, destroyed neighborhoods and that kind of thing. Well after the whole classifications weren't used anymore for mortgage lending, so I'm sure that is also playing a role here as well.
And just to add to Josh's point on 290, two things. One is a librarian at the Worcester Public Library researched the construction of 290 and did a presentation about a year and a half ago that I attended, and it was standing room only. People were standing in the hallway in order to hear. And I was one of the ones in the hallway, so I got to hear most of it and see some of the slides. It was a tremendous presentation and very well researched. And there's a professor at Holy Cross, Professor Amy Finstein, who is researching that as well and actually contributed to mapping inequality. If people are interested in this topic, when you go to mapping inequality and click on the city of Worcester, there's a contextual passage that comes up about sort of how redlining played out in the city of Worcester that Professor Finstein authored. So that has nothing to do with the Bureau, but I think it might be interesting for those of you who are considering those things.
Just like a quick thing there. Essentially, what is shared is that it was a Black neighborhood that was destroyed in order to build 290. Like, that is something that I think we as a city don't talk about often. It's a topic that a lot of cities that do end up doing the proper research to the redlining that exists in their respective cities. Like, that is unfortunately it's a constant. Like, that practice was a constant in so many cities, and unfortunately Worcester was no different. But the research behind all of it is fascinating and heartbreaking at the same time. But no, thanks for bringing that up, because it is truly something. Dr. Reese?
Yes, to the chair. Truly appreciate the presentation by Paul Matthews and Joshua Broster. And basically, based off my living in Worcester, I've just been here for about 33 years. But the church that I am a part of, Mount Sinai Church of God Christ, was a part of the eminent domain taken by the city of the 290 going through the neighborhood. But this is just something that has been perpetuated throughout years. Gentrification always find themselves in Black and brown neighborhoods. And I really, when I looked at the map, originally I'm from New York and grew up in low income communities and what have you. And it seemed like it's just, as Randy have put out, that it's like 100 years. I know we can't go back and look at this, but it's a perpetuation that, someone said, well, we got to be pull ourselves up our bootstraps. And then Martin Luther King said, what about the person that don't have boots on?
Mhm.
And I appreciate the presentation and the redlining just orchestrated by those in power, those in high ivory towers. And people say race don't matter, but it does matter. And we said we can't see color, but we do see color. And right here, I'm the only African-American or Black person on this presentation, and I have to tell no one that I'm Black. But I look at other people, and they'll have to never identify themselves or what have you. Black and brown people have to do that. But it's just, and I know that the project is 2019, so hopefully things have improved in the last 6 or 7 years. But then the question, what is improvement? What is progress? And it's just heartbreaking to me I know this here. First, I was raised in New York City, went to school in New York City. And I never heard about Seneca Village, where Central Park is. And I went to the history classes. I call myself a history buff, but never was introduced to these things, these prominent communities by brown and Black people, people of color. But it seemed like, and then I went to school in North Carolina, seminary, University of Shore University, bachelor, master's, CAGS, PhD. And never knew about the different types of things that happen in Wilmington, what happened in North Carolina. Never heard about Tulsa until I had to learn on my own. So this information just really bothers me, but I'm glad that we looking at this. I am optimistic. I understand that racism or diversity is an ideal. I know the American Constitution is an ideal, trying to reach it, but I wonder what I'll ever see different in my lifetime. Because right now I'm in the sunset of my life. I'm 74 years old, and it's just disturbing. It's just disturbing me as a human being, as a man of the cloth. I'm a bishop in the church, seminary, trained, and I just hope for the best. But I appreciate the presentation. But housing and redlining do not value much people that living in the best neighborhoods, living in Salisbury Street or Hackney. The housing do not appreciate is that of those people in the best neighborhoods, and then the worst neighborhoods. It just bothers me. But I know the terminology is out there, but it's heartbreaking to me. And I appreciate the presentation. And so someone living in a hazardous, undesirable neighborhood, the appreciation of the house is not going up. And housing is one of our best investment for people to reach up in the middle class. So I appreciate it, but it's just alarming to me that, that we still, is correlation, causation, and believing we don't want to hear it, but it's just based on the people in power. And that's just what it is. And the only one that can rectify that is people in power. And I hope for the best, but I appreciate your presentation. But it's hard to start from 0 and then go to 100. So I hope things work better for people of color in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reese. Father Jonathan?
Yeah, I want to thank you for your presentation today. And I think there's a lot to go into it, with hearing you, Dr. Reese. I appreciate those words there. When I look at, Plumley Village, and I think of the priests who served there predominantly to the Black and brown people in the day there, and you look at how 290 affected like churches like Mount Carmel, Our Lady of Fatima, people that served economically disadvantaged individuals there. And as we have this conversation today, I think we have an opportunity to actually, especially in light of like the snowfall right now, to say, hey, how are we serving our community better, especially in these areas? And I say that because living in this area on Lincoln Street there, I go up and down the streets after a snowstorm, like, and it just as an example, people have nowhere to park, people have nowhere to walk, people have nowhere to go. And then I see snow being removed out of other areas where there's driveways, where there's garages for homes. And I have 5 feet of snow going to the middle of Lincoln Street that we can't get moved. What are we saying to the people that live in these areas that are saying, fend for yourself? You know, like, do it on your own. And so this issue still exists, obviously, today, as we know. And it kills me to think that, you know, the city's not doing enough in certain areas for the people who are truly struggling in our communities. You know, and so I think this is a very important presentation that you made today. But at the same time, I think we have an opportunity now to like look at issues that we have to say, hey, as a Human Rights Commission, we have to look at certain things. You know, why are we not looking at people in need right now? Like after the snowstorm, there's going to be a lot of people in need. And I know this is a lot of snow that is going on. Why aren't the inspectors going out, looking at sidewalks, saying, can this person in a wheelchair get by? Why are there not inspectors going out saying, hey, people have a right to park on the city streets, but they can't because we're too busy moving snow someplace else? You know, so I think this is a very important issue, and I thank you for your presentation on this day. But also at the same time, too, in regards to accidents in areas and like this, I think we have to look at human error at times, you know, and I think that's like a question I have like on data. When we look at data, when it comes to accidents in these high-risk areas, I've been on Lincoln Street for 10 years now, you know, and I've seen many accidents. You know, I've seen little children get hit by cars, you know, human error type. Unfortunately, like when I say human error, it's not their fault. They're a little kid late at night running out. Unfortunate, you know, and so like I just want to make sure, like when we look at data, we also look at the authentic data of just like, okay, what is perhaps human error versus other, conflicting, contributing factors there as well. But I do think we have an opportunity right now as the Human Rights Commission to actually say, hey, let's focus on the areas right now that are in the red, because a lot of these individuals are struggling and they feel like their voices are not being heard and it not being seen simply because nothing is being done.
So following up on Father Jonathan's great observation, I was wondering if the Research Bureau could ever get down in the weeds and look at where the money is spent on snow removal, like by census tract, or not by census tract, by streets. Like, in other words, can it be borne out that, let's say, I think all of us would feel sorriest for people like Father Jonathan said, where you don't have a driveway and you don't have a garage and you're parking in front of your apartment with all the other apartment parkers, and then you're digging out your own spot and you can't get by the street because they're narrow and you're trying to protect your spot. And I'm wondering, like we all see, downtown, for instance, or other places where the what do they call that? The haulers, the ones with the big shovels in the front that pick up snow and throw it into the dump truck. We all see those in areas where it's either like a big street going across the city or a downtown area like a main street. And I'm wondering if we ever studied something like where that snow removal comes, not just snow plowing comes, if we would find an inequitable spending of resources so that those who are best positioned or engaged more in commerce and less in digging out in front of their own house get the resources and other people don't. I don't know if that could be studied or not.
If I could first react, and then I'll defer to Josh. I'm going to offer the standard response we offer people who come to us. And by the way, members of the public and commission, like we accept public suggestions of research topics. I mean, there's only small staff, so we need to prioritize them, but we have an open nomination process for research ideas. But the first question we always ask is, does that data actually exist? Not do we have it, does it exist, and can we ask for it? It's a fascinating question. I think the first question would be, is expense of snow plowing tracked on some sort of a geographic basis within the city? I simply don't know the answer to that question, so I don't even know if the data actually exists. I think it's a very valid question to ask aloud, but I don't know if the data exists to answer it. And at that point, I'll shift gears and defer to Josh.
Yeah, it's a question of whether the city keeps track of that. I mean, I imagine they must, but do they keep track of it in a like historical, accessible way where you could like look back? I'm not sure, but I will say, and if it's okay if I share my screen, I do have kind of an answer for this.
Great point, Josh. I forgot about
and
the
so.
other product.
Last June, we released a online story map called "Where Are Worcester's Woes?" We looked at 311 data between 2020 and February 2025, and so there are a couple maps here of where people requested sand or salt on their streets, a street not plowed, sidewalks not shoveled, and then there's one specific day that we looked at also. So I'll share that real fast here. And so basically, this is a grid of Worcester in about 0.1 square mile hexagons, because hexagons are great. And so basically, what we did was take all the points of 311 requests and just aggregate them inside of hexagons, so we can get like a pretty good quick view of like where are the most requests. So for winter 2024, 2025, so December 2024 through February 2025, these are where there were the most requests for sand or salt on streets. So in the darkest blue areas, a few here, over here, there were 29 to 40 requests, and then the white areas are about 1 to 4 requests that were made. There were 382 reports of streets that weren't plowed. So these were just 301 requests for plows. And again, you can see there's a lot over here on the west side, and there's fewer over here and in the north. And then sidewalks not shoveled. So this is reports of sidewalks not being shoveled, a lot in the downtown area and in the more the denser areas of the city. This is Grafton Street over here. So there's a lot of requests. I don't know if you can see my mouse or not. But this Grafton Street is over here, and you can see there's a lot of requests there along Grafton Street. And then we also looked at February 18th, 2025. You may remember this as the day that it was extremely icy in Worcester last year. So these were the requests for sand and salt. And this was February 2025 had the most requests for sand and salt of the entire winter last year, but there were almost 1,000 on that one day, and you can kind of see where they are spread around the city. So it's not exactly an answer to the question about like where is the city responding specifically, but it is like a look at least at like where people are requesting help.
Well, I also think too, one of the things to take into consideration when it comes to data collection like this is what's the equitable reach that 311 has, right? Like folks that are frequent voters they frequent 311, right? But like that's a small percentage of the city of Worcester. So like, does the average resident that might fall under the like average or low income bracket actually know if 311 exists or how to function 311? Or Worcester, a city being with individuals that speak multiple languages, do they know how to properly work 311? So Joshua, great data, like this is super valid. It makes me wonder even more so, what is the equitable outreach approach that exists, if any, for things like 311, for things that are connected to requesting city resources?
And I would add as well, if, I was gonna say, oh,
no, go ahead. You're the commission member, Father.
sorry, I apologize about that. You know, and I would add as well with that, you know, if we look at some of these properties, how many of these properties where there's a lot of the sidewalk issues, right? How many of these properties owned by out of area individuals or, you know, businesses or whatnot there, like, you know, that are leasing, you know, taking over these properties that have no connection to Worcester, you know, so perhaps they are not, you know, these people that come in and buy 10 3-deckers at a time there, you know, and we have those issues there that take place. So they don't really have an investment in the community and whatnot there. And so there's a greater burden as well. But also with that, I was going to say, what was I going to say? Oh, you just had it in my head. Let me think really quick. Properties, this and that, snow removal. I'll come back to me in a second there. Yeah, but on the map, I'd be curious. Oh, I was gonna say that. This is what I was gonna say. I get it. Me, as a white man priest, I shouldn't have to call up to get the stuff done or snow removed in my area, right? You talk about 311. Who has access to 311? Who knows 311? A lot of my community doesn't know about 311 there. I shouldn't have to be the one calling to get stuff done around the community. It should simply be done because there are residents in the community that need it done. You know, I'm happy to be a voice for my people in which I serve, for the people in which I live, but at the same time, I understand there's a sense of privilege there, and that's why it's getting done, and that's unacceptable. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. Paul, were you going to add?
I was simply going to add, we do preface this visualization by making clear, in it's Josh's language, that this tracks inquiries and requests. It's not
Sure.
reflective of where the most need is. It's reflective of where the most requests are coming from, which part of it is, you know, you can make a phone call, part of it is an app. And look, an app is inherently dependent on someone actually having a smartphone that you can download an app to. So, I mean, there are factors here that impact. And, you know, if you can raise very valid language concerns and a whole host of others. So we do try to be clear what this is showing. And it goes back to data issues, you know, and we can use what data is available. And that's data we had available, but we, you know, wish we had data on where all the needs are, but we're going to continue doing what we can with the data that is available.
Yeah. Carrie?
Just trying to figure out how to unmute here. I just, you know, just to echo everyone else, just want to start off by thanking you for being here tonight and discussing these reports. I think you guys do great work. I love research. I love data, and you know, what I've read, I've really enjoyed, and think you guys do a great job. I wanted to say too, I love this snow removal topic. William, I agree with you in terms of, you know, it'd be interesting to look at equity on the request side of things, the access to 311, the, you know, how are people making these requests and what does equity look like there? I'm also curious on the other side too, as to like response to requests as well, and whether there's equitable response to requests that do come in. I know this has been a topic that has been brought up in city council many times recently, and I think just the overall topic of snow removal, I think would be really interesting for a report and for a study.
So I'm hearing that we want to do something. So I've quickly put something together. I'm curious if we think that we should put this recommendation forward. So if the commission will entertain this for a quick second. So the Worcester Human Rights Commission can respectfully request that the city manager's administration develop and present an equitable service delivery framework addressing how municipal resources are distributed across neighborhoods, including but not limited to snow removal operations and the public education regarding 311 services. Thoughts? Comments?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
Do you want to
Well,
move it? And
Father
Oh, yeah, I was
Jonathan,
gonna say, are you
moves-
looking for a motion or a
Yeah,
second?
oh, yeah, do I
Because if
move
that's
it?
your
Like, what
motion,
do-
I will second
That's
it,
my
if that's your
motion. So who wants to
Yeah,
second
second,
it?
I
right?
can second it.
Second. Oh,
Okay, I heard Father Jonathan or Carrie.
give it to
so
Carrie.
what
Give it
I-
to Carrie.
All right, we'll give it to Carrie. All right. Pat, can we get a roll call on that?
Sure. So we have a motion made by Guillermo, seconded by Carrie. Roll call, please. Chair Guillermo Creamer Jr.,
Aye.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman,
I,
Clerk Carrie Witherell,
Aye.
members, Reverend Jonathan Slavinskis,
Aye.
Dr. Reese,
Aye.
excuse me, Anna Heat Merudian.
Aye.
And Drew Schneblin.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries.
I'll send that over to you, Pat.
Thank you.
Joshua.
Sorry, Paul and Joshua. I just wanted to do something really quickly. Go ahead, Randy.
Joshua, one of the things that you said that was the most interesting to me, and I want to see if we could take a look at that map again. It's the rents that are highest, the areas where the rents are highest of a percentage of people's income in order that goes to rent. Can we look at that again?
Well,
Yes, I'm
Josh
just-
is. While Josh is pulling it up, let me add, by the way, that the static income report, I talked about how we make the data available whenever possible directly online. There's actually an online visualization that takes you through with an interactive dashboard at the end, so you can interact with the data directly. Now, obviously, that requires you have a computer and an internet connection, or perhaps go to the library, but I want to stress to everyone that is indeed available. It's not simply our analysis.
All right, Josh, can you help me a little bit with the color coding? So the ones that are most cost burdened, is that on the left or in the center map?
So the maps are both showing the same thing. The left map is just showing it via census tracts. The city has 46 census tracts. And then the right side is the estimation of what the census tracts would look like if they were in the shape of the redlining polygons.
I see. So if it follows the redlining polygons, the dark red in the middle, dark blue in the middle map is significantly bigger than the redlining red areas on the right. Can you tell us where those areas of the city are specifically that are that dark? And then there's an even, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, the dark ones have the highest percentage of your income that goes to your cost of your housing, right? So the darker, the more percentage of your money is spent on rent. Is that correct?
It's the colors represent the percentage of like all the renter units in the area that are cost burdened. So irrespective of whether they're spending 30 or 50% of their income on rent, it's that's just like if 5 of the, in this area, the 55% of renter households report being cost burdened to the census.
And what area is that of the city?
That looks like it is along Indian Lake, to the west of Indian Lake.
All right, so that's not intuitive to me. Is that like houses, or is that apartments, or why is that have such a higher percentage of cost burdened folks over there at Indian Lake?
It could be it could be an artifact of, well, there are quite a few cost burdened renters like in the corresponding census tract, and this looks like it's coming from basically the middle of that census tract. But there might not be that many. So the thing is, like, this map here is a little agnostic about how many renters there are in those areas. So, for example, like there might be 2,000 renters in downtown. I'm just making that number up. But over in this census tract and in the corresponding like the red line zone, there might only be 100. And of those 100, 55% are, spending more than 30% of their income on rent. So that could be part of it. It's just a really high cost of living area, and the renters there are just spending a lot more of their income. And there's fewer of them, so they stand out more. But
And
that's just a guess.
How about on the bottom left-hand side in the middle map where it's the second gradation of blue? I guess that's the second largest amount of people who are cost burdened. What part of the city is that?
Over here.
In the middle,
Oh,
you go ahead, go over there. Same thing. Yeah, that's fine.
are you thinking in this area here or over or down here? I'm sorry.
Well, if you use the map you're on now, I'm thinking where you were originally pointing, the dark blue on the bottom and the one above it, that's also dark blue.
Yep.
I actually was thinking about the middle map's dark blue, but you could explain it
okay.
either way. Yeah.
Yeah. Over here, this is these are the census tracts around Webster Square. And so similarly, those are the same sorts of areas like here. But this is like, so this is downtown, and then over here is also downtown. It's the what's called business. So it doesn't have a number associated with it because it wasn't rated. But that's over here, and then you can kind of go down through this. Oops. You kind of go down through this way, and that would bring you down Main Street towards Webster Square. So that's the sort of the neighborhoods that we're talking about in this particular area are like Main South and areas like to the west and east of Main South.
I see. Thank you.
And if I could, something that might not be intuitive here is the fact that, in some areas, rents might be lower than in other areas of the city, but the income level also could be very lower. So, it's not like it's a map that shows the most expensive rents in the city, for instance. It's not. It shows it shows a linkage between income and rent. So you can be in a high rent district of the city, but also be in a high income area of the city, for instance. So it's not just showing the straight cost of rent. It's trying to show that gap with income.
What's next? What studies are coming up next?
Well, as I said, we just released an election visualization that Josh worked very hard on that should help inform things. That's a visualization. It's not a report. There's no narrative. There's no conclusion. We're not passing judgment on politics. We're simply saying if people are curious about the election turnout, here it is. We also recently released, and I know it's not under the purview of this group, but we do a lot of work on education in the Worcester Public Schools. We released a brief on the implementation of the school strategic plan and created an online dashboard that you can see how they're doing with key performance indicators. So there's all that. We also released a report last year on the Worcester-Framingham commuter rail line. And we announced at the time we're going to do a companion report. So we're finalizing that companion report now, looking at the long-term potential of the line and, trying to continue to press the case that the state investment in the line is paying huge dividends, not just for Worcester, but all the communities Framingham West. And that it's important the state continue to make those investments to meet the promise of the line. So we've got several other projects in the pipeline, but we're also eager to pull in a fourth staffer so we can move on some of these research projects. But rest assured, you're going to be hearing more from the Research Bureau. And I think a lot of those issue areas matter to the Human Rights Commission. So we always appreciate the opportunity to talk to the commission. You have a very expansive perspective, and it's one that frankly mirrors a lot of the expansive work we do across a wide range of issues. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say just thank you to all of you for individual compliments. We're not always complimented. It's meaningful to be complimented, so we really do appreciate it. And Dr. Reese, my son went to NC State, so go North Carolina. I know it's not obviously your institution, but I do want to share the kinship there.
My brother played basketball for UNC back in '93 when they won the NCAA tournament. Brian Reese, 31. So,
Oh, it wasn't Phil
remember-
Ford?
no. This is 1993.
Well, congratulations. That was quite, I do remember that win. That was a dramatic win.
Yeah, you remember the timeout, the famous timeout by Chris Webber?
Yeah.
That was that game. Yeah.
Yep.
That's all right. Good.
It would now be a good time to tell everyone I was born in '94, or should I just? All right. Well,
Let us old guys be old, huh?
I'd like to.
Middle age.
I'd like to thank the Research Bureau for the presentation, but also just for the work that you all are doing, because it really does lead to great things that our city thrives when those things happen. So thank you for your work and for everything that you do, and for putting up with the naysayers that do exist, that don't want the Research Bureau looking into this work. And it's like, sometimes disruption isn't a bad thing, right? So thanks for all of that. With that, any commissioners want to discuss anything else before I call for an adjournment?
I had one question for Pat. Pat, I apologize for not remembering this, or Kevin, you as well, whoever wants to answer it. I know that we came up with a survey for people who wanted to make claims of discrimination. I know that went back to the legal department and back to us and things like that. I think, if I remember right, that was put up there, the questionnaire, and it's on the website and being used now, but I can't remember that as a fact. Is that a fact?
It is not put up there. I'll let Kevin go ahead.
Yeah, no, you got it, Pat. It's not put up there right now. We paused on that, Randy.
Okay, so if we don't have the questionnaire, then we certainly don't have the procedures that will follow the questionnaire being completed and submitted. That would be correct. Would that be right?
Randy, we can take this offline because I feel like we had this conversation before.
Oh, okay. I just want to for a fact where we are on that project, and at least I think it's a two-part project, the questionnaire and then the procedures. And I just want to know where we are on those two things. It doesn't have to be answered tonight, but I'm just trying to get some idea.
Sounds good.
Okay. Anything else from folks?
I just want to let you guys know I will not be at the next meeting. I will be in Washington, D.C. at an education fellowship retreat. So I will certainly watch back online, and I can still do the minutes, but I will not be here.
Oh, thank you, Carrie. Appreciate it.
Sounds fun.
All right. Well, we'll be in touch, folks. Again, thank you to the Research Bureau for being in attendance. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Great. Can I get a second?
I can second that.
Awesome. Pat, roll call, please.
So we have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:25. A brief roll call, please. Chair Guillermo Creamer Jr.
Aye.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman.
Aye.
Clerk Carrie Witherell.
Aye.
Member Reverend Jonathan Slavinskis. Member Dr. Reese.
Aye.
Excuse me. Member Anahit Marudian.
Aye.
And Member Drew Schneblin.
Aye.
So we have all present except for Reverend Jonathan. He must have cut out or something.
Yep,
So we
that's
have
fine.
all present. We are adjourned.